We've got two tropical systems to keep an eye on. I've got the newest models for both and timing out when we could see the effects.
Quarterback or children's hospital? Does North Carolina really have to pick just one? We head to Murph's Turf to find out why Duke's starting QB was brought up in budget talks. And countdown to cuts. We're less than a week away from a major Medicaid deadline, putting the health care for thousands of people at risk. The plea from the governor for lawmakers to get something done. We start with this live look here at rain coming down in our area after a long stretch without it. You got the radar on the right side of your screen, a live look at RDU Airport on the left. Some clouds rolling in there, some showers on the way. Appreciate you being with us here at 7 o'clock. I'm Dan Haggerty. A severe thunderstorm warning just expired in Wake County as that system heads now into Johnston County. The city of Raleigh, we should say, though, is lowering water levels at Lake Johnson in an effort to mitigate any flooding. And that's because we have more than one storm to worry about. A satellite view shows the tropical system that we are eyeing right now. It could be on our doorstep early next week. Kat Campbell has been keeping a close eye on this. In the weather department, it's been a whole lot of nothing recently, Kat. We've been used to some dry weather out there, but things will be busy over the next few days.
The dual Doppler 5000 radar certainly going to be getting a workout, and that starts today with the rain that we've seen. The storms are moving away from Wake County. The one exception is this shower that is oh so close to RDU Airport, but the more intense activity are these storms that are moving through Johnston County right now. Smithfield seeing heavy rain, much needed rain there. A lot of thunder and lightning, though. And if we put a storm track on this, we're likely to see impacts in about 2 minutes for Selma, Spring Lake around 7:20, Rocky Mount 7:24, Wilson 7:25, and Goldsboro it could be closer to about 7:45 this evening. All of this activity is moving off to the east, but we're also keeping a very close eye on the tropics. Possible impacts coming 3 to 5 inches of rain. Timing Monday and Tuesday for the tropical stuff, and gusty winds are likely, but still some question marks in terms of just how strong those winds could be. Umberto, not as threatening for us here at home. It's this one that is likely to be the one that we're going to need to watch as we head into the long range. The model plots show that one in red here, and that's what we're talking about. We got in some new model data that's a bit more concerning overnight, and it's held steady throughout the day for a greater threat to the Carolinas. Dan?
So I want to come into the weather studio here for just a second and talk to you about what we're looking at over the next couple of days, because it is a little whiles out, right? But you are paying attention to the way things change. What do you pay attention to?
Well, one thing we noticed was this significant shift overnight into today for more impacts here in the Carolinas. And you've got to remember, yesterday we told you that the hurricane hunters were flying into this system. They continue to do so today. So now the models are getting real data into them, and they're becoming more accurate. And that's why this shift we're really taking seriously.
I'm sure we'll learn more as we move into the weekend as well.
Oh, absolutely. So right now, we're going 3 to 5 inches for our viewing area, generally speaking. We'll really get a better town-by-town feel for rainfall potential, wind potential, and of course, we'll start getting official forecast tracks from the National Hurricane Center.
Kat, thank you. Let's send things into the Live Center.
I'm Willie Danley in the WRAL Storm Tracker. Right now, we're driving into Johnston County. I can show you what we're seeing right now. You can see that the clouds are getting rather dark. We've seen a lot of lightning, some heavy rain also in the area. We started the day driving through Holly Springs. They had some warnings about potential hail that was falling down in the area and heavy rain that they were experiencing. As you can see, these clouds are dark. We have been seeing a lot of lightning in the sky. We're going to continue to remain out here on the road, keeping an eye on these conditions. Back to you.
All right, Willie, thanks very much. Brian Schrader here in the WRAL Live Center. All new in the past 20 minutes, we have learned that a federal grand jury has indicted former FBI Director James Comey on charges of making a false statement and obstruction. That's according to Associated Press sources. This all stems from testimony that he provided to Congress back in September of 2020 as Congress was investigating allegations of Russian meddling in the 2016 presidential election. Of course, over the weekend, President Trump posted to social media appearing to urge Attorney General Pam Bondi to indict Comey and others. And in the past 15 minutes, Bondi is posted on X saying no one is above the law and we will follow the facts in this case. Comey has denied any wrongdoing.
All right, big development there. I knew we'd get to the Live Center eventually. Didn't mean to skip over Willie there. Thanks to Willie and Brian. Meantime, the North Carolina lawmakers here in the state have until October 1st to pass a budget fully funding Medicaid. That is less than a week away right now. And the legislature actually isn't scheduled to meet again until close to Halloween. So what's going to happen? What can they do? And what might happen to the thousands of people who depend on Medicaid? WRAL Sean Gallagher has the story.
North Carolina's political arena has fallen silent until next month. But for Medicaid recipients, they're not waiting on the sideline until the clock hits zero. Shannon Dingle rarely has time to take out of her day.
The reality is that health care is a significant expense.
A widow caring for 6 children with severe health care needs. She really doesn't have any time.
Medicaid allows us to survive, allows us to thrive.
But that's how important it is for her to make her voice loud now. Lawmakers hold her family's life in their hands. With the federal budget looking to cut $1 trillion from Medicaid over the next 10 years, Governor Josh Stein is pleading to state lawmakers after they failed to pass a budget earlier this week.
The General Assembly has failed you.
The thing is, North Carolina lawmakers on both sides agree Medicaid funding is necessary. However, they haven't passed through a budget to fix it because of disagreements between Republican lawmakers over funding for the Children's Hospital.
I am ready to sign a clean Medicaid funding bill today.
Earlier this week, House Speaker Destin Hall downplayed the urgency of this, saying Stein has the power to delay the cuts.
They have plenty of money over there to last them not only through this year, but well into next year.
Why not push the deadline back?
Well, because we've pushed it back 3 months. And by identifying cuts that are reversible, they can solve this problem at any point up until October 20th. I would welcome them to come back and solve it next week.
It's all a game of political ping pong that's hard for Dingle to stomach.
This isn't just some political game. I'm having to pay close attention to what's happening because it affects us.
With the lives of her 6 kids and tens of thousands more across the state on the line. Sean Gallagher, WRAL News, Raleigh.
So the state budget talks still aren't moving forward, and it's not just Medicaid here at the center of the debate. There's also a plan to set aside tens of millions of dollars for a new children's hospital. But not every lawmaker is convinced it needs more public funding. Now the project is being held up against Duke's starting quarterback. Wait, what? Do we really have to choose between those two things? Our Ashley Rowe got an explanation from WRAL investigative sports reporter Brian Murphy in a trip to Murph's Turf.
Murph, we got to talk about what House Speaker Destin Hall said. He brought up Duke's quarterback while talking about funding for the Children's Hospital that is going to be built in Apex.
Yeah, Ashley, I didn't expect Darren Mentz's name, that is his name, to get mentioned during a conversation about how the state keeps its budget going. But that's what we had, and you can listen right here to what Destin Hall had to say.
Why we would give hundreds of millions of dollars to a new hospital in Wake County that's doing pretty good economically. Duke and UNC have a lot of money, and in particular Duke, they both have multi-billion-dollar endowments. Duke paid Tulane's quarterback $8 million to come play for him this year, and so our members are asking the questions of why is the state sending this money to two entities that already have a ton of it.
I want to break this down with you because I think we need to do a bit of fact checking here. First of all, he brought up the salary, but then also he brought up the endowments and how that should be paying for this hospital. Doesn't all quite add up.
Mentz is not on an $8 million contract. He's on a 2-year, $8 million contract, so about $4 million a year. Still one of the highest paid quarterbacks in college football. The endowments. North Carolina has an endowment of about $6 billion. Duke has an endowment of about $12 billion. But endowments aren't savings accounts. They can't just be used whenever you have an expense. Most of the money that comes in is earmarked for certain projects or certain scholarships. And so it's not a piggy bank that you can just raid when you want to build a children's hospital, as is the case right now.
This children's hospital is actually quite a sticking point with the state budget that has not yet been passed. What's going on with the Senate and the House?
Yeah, in 2023, both chambers agreed to fund this children's hospital, and that money is being allocated on a year-by-year basis. This would be the final installment of that. The House is saying, no, we're done funding this children's hospital, even though the Senate wants to give them hundreds of millions of dollars more. The House says we have other priorities, we have other things. And again, UNC and Duke have a lot of money. They can take care of this children's hospital, which now the House is saying maybe we shouldn't even go in Wake County, that there are other needs across the state. So there are a lot of issues at work here. Just funny that the Duke quarterback got mentioned in all of it.
Yeah, and when we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar hospital to bring up a $4 million a year salary, anyway, we'll leave it to people to make their own assumptions there. Thanks, Murph.
Always love a trip to the turf. We did receive a joint statement from UNC Health and Duke Health that reads in part, UNC Health and Duke Health will contribute their pediatric services equal to approximately $1 billion combined each year. Additionally, we have launched a philanthropic campaign that will raise more than $1 billion for NC Children's. Well, it has been 1 year since Helene hit North Carolina and the mountains. 365 days and thousands of stories later. WRAL's documentary team put together something special. Gives you an idea of what we lost and what we found. After the break, we're talking about how a documentary like this comes together. Well, here we are. It has been 1 year now since Helene hit North Carolina, devastating the western part of our state, forever changing the lives of our neighbors there in the mountains. It has been a year of loss and pain, also recovery and resilience. 1 year captured in WRAL's newest documentary, Helene, What We Lost, What We Found, airing right after this newscast here tonight. I talked with WRAL's Kristen Severance about how it all came together. So, Kristen, we look forward to the documentary tonight, but this is such a huge topic, so many people impacted. How did you even know where to look?
We had so many crews covering the storm and the aftermath of the storm. So I gathered all of the photographers and reporters in a room together, and we talked about, what stories do we need to include in this documentary? We had all of these ideas on a whiteboard, and then we did our best to try to figure out what stories could we actually get into the doc.
So who are we going to hear from tonight?
So many different voices. One I want to talk about, Rod Ashby. This was the first time he's ever shared his story publicly. He and his wife, Kim Ashby, were in their cabin in Elk Park when it came off the embankment into the Elk River. And he explains what happened next.
I looked up and there was a big tree, and I told her, hang on, we're going to hit a tree. And we hit the tree, and I couldn't hold on to her.
So sad, so emotional, and she is still missing 1 year later. Her family, they are just having such a tough time dealing with all of this.
It is unbelievable to think about what some of these people, these families have gone through and are still going through now as the community is rebuilding, and the difficult time they've had getting help, primarily when it comes to federal aid.
Right, we've heard a lot about these fight for federal funds. Governor Josh Stein has asked Congress for $13 billion, not really getting an answer on that. FEMA, Governor Stein has said it's been very slow to get reimbursement to towns, but we will show what that looks like on the ground. What are people dealing with as they wait for money?
Also, I have to imagine that all this shared hardship has really brought this community together in a unique way.
It's called What We Lost, What We Found. And what we found is there is so much hope there. People were close to their neighbors before. They went through this traumatic event. They are rebuilding their communities together, shoulder to shoulder. It is so inspiring. I hope when people watch it, they want to go there. They want to visit these places. They may not be exactly the same, but they want you and they need you there.
All right, Kristen, thank you.
You bet.
Helene, What We Lost, What We Found airs right after this newscast. So we are just 15 minutes away, and we hope that you tune in. Kat?
And we're tracking a severe storm moving through Johnston County. That threat continues through about 8 o'clock or until the storms push east of the county. Strong winds, 60-mile-per-hour gusts would be the primary threat. We also have a lot of thunder and lightning within these storms that we're tracking. One shower moving into northern Wake County, and we're watching more storms moving through Nash County. These are going to be continuing to move through Spring Hope, Rocky Mount, Wilson. You're likely to see these storms arrive here pretty soon. The bulk of these storms, though, are east of the triangle at this point and should continue to push east of the triangle. But Selma, wow, a lot of lightning. Johnston County, I am sure that you are happy to get some rain right now. The issue is we could just get too much of it, believe it or not. We've all been begging for rain, but we're talking 3 to 5 inches of rain possible from now through early next week. The risk from tropical impacts increasing as well. The storm threat for today was trimmed back a little bit, which is good, but we are still seeing a couple of the storms out there tonight. This is the one to watch, the area with a 90% chance of development. Umberto still more than likely staying out to sea and away from us. In fact, models have sped this system up where it's able to move far enough west where it's a little far away and may not see the steering influence quite as much from Umberto. And the chance it develops, 90%, it's pretty certain. One thing to note that could happen is even though it may not become a tropical storm or depression until the weekend, because it is closing in on the Bahamas and very likely to develop, it could get that kind of funky potential tropical cyclone designation before it actually gets named. We'll keep you up to date on that one tomorrow, but the good news about that would be that would allow the National Hurricane Center to issue forecast cones and tracks before it actually develops, which can be helpful in messaging, of course. Umberto is forecast to become a hurricane, perhaps a major hurricane as we get into the early part of next week. You can see the forecast cone, though, likely to turn to the north. Here's the setup on the latest European model. It shows the system still offshore on Monday, but the outer rain bands reaching the Carolinas and perhaps a landfall closer to the Carolinas as we get into Monday night into early Tuesday with impacts continuing. Now, Umberto would likely stay out to sea after this. The bottom line here is that while that may not be the exact track it takes, the threat of it taking a track inland into the Carolinas is looking more likely, and it is a bit more concerning now that we've got that hurricane hunter data going into the models as well. 86 the high tomorrow. We're finally out of the 90s at least. The bulk of tomorrow's storms will come after lunchtime and especially into tomorrow night. The weekend staying unsettled, but the tropical stuff wouldn't come likely until Monday and Tuesday, Dan.
All right, thank you, Kat. Hey, it's time for another episode of 7 p.m. Super Kids. Tonight, a 9-year-old girl with alopecia leading the way in a fundraising effort for research and awareness. And it's right after the break. But first, we're going to give you a look at what's going on around our area this weekend with a quick look out and about. One last thing to talk about tonight. On Saturday morning, a whole bunch of people are going to be going to Wake Med Soccer Park for a little walk. It's good exercise, and it's for a good cause. And one of the top fundraisers is a 9-year-old girl from Durham. It's time for another installment of 7 p.m. Super Kids.
7 p.m.